The Hot Seat.
Welcome to the Hot Seat, a debate segment where ideas clash and insights spark. I'm your host, Hongbin Jeong. Now, in the wake of the recent NTU case, the uneasy relationship between generative AI and academia has come sharply into focus. Students were accused of academic fraud for using AI, not for submitting AI-written essays, but for using tools to organize citations or streamline research. One was cleared after intense scrutiny from a panel of AI experts. Others weren't so fortunate. The policies vague, the consequences life-altering. As AI becomes more powerful and indistinguishable from human work, the lines between learning assistance and misconduct are blurring. Universities are struggling to keep up, while students are left guessing what crosses the line. So today we ask the question, is a zero-tolerance policy for AI really needed for the future of academia? Well, before we hear from our guests and dive deeper into this debate, here's a disclaimer. The views and arguments presented by our interviewees do not necessarily reflect their personal beliefs or opinions. Instead, they are here to provide a fresh perspective on the topic at hand. On that note, if you'd like to send some questions in for our guests or send in your opinions, feel free to WhatsApp us at 88550893 or leave a comment on our Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, as we're currently streaming live on those platforms as well. Now, without further ado, joining us today is Andrew Tan Yong Chuan, who is a co-founder of Atomi, to share with us why a zero tolerance for AI policy is necessary for the future of academia. And we also have Damien Xing, who is the senior lecturer in law at the National University of Singapore at Business School, so who will try to convince us otherwise. Welcome to the show, both. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, since we have both of you here, I want to ask you, is there a place for AI in academia, or should it always be considered unacceptable? Maybe, Damien, we go with you first. Damien, sorry.
Yes. Right. Thanks, Hongbin. So I think there's certainly a place for AI in academia. And the starting point has to be that students are going to use AI, whether or not we like it or not. And I think I'll just let you in on a little secret here, right? So even professors, we are using AI. In fact, just this last semester, for some of my teaching videos, those were not even recorded. Those were AI generated, right? And I know for a fact that many of my colleagues, they are also implementing AI in their teaching as well. So really, to me, the question is not so much whether there is a place for AI in academia, in higher education, but more of how we can properly situate, how we can properly incorporate AI into our teaching methods.
Well, Andrew, you're on the stance that a zero tolerance is needed. What are your thoughts? Is there a place for AI in academia, or should it always be considered unacceptable?
Well, I guess, I would take the stance of zero tolerance at this moment, because I think for learning progress has always got to be the learning outcome based. And what do we want to achieve for the outcome of the subject? And I do have the privilege to actually develop courses for the undergraduate as well as the postgraduate, and having clear rules, guidelines are very stringent in the school. So in the case of NTU, for that matter, it has been very made known that no AI or that will be utilized.
Right. Well, we're having this discussion today, as you mentioned, in light of a recent case over at NTU where 3 students had received 0 marks for a written assignment in a health and politics module after being found to have used Gen AI tools in their submissions. But I want to know, what were your thoughts on this issue when it came out? Did NTU's handling of the AI incident reflect a fair and forward-thinking approach to academic integrity, or did it reveal deeper shortcomings in adapting to the realities of today's education system? Damien?
Yeah, so I think beyond certain Reddit postings, we do not actually have the full facts. We do not have the full story from both sides. So what I'll do is to refrain from commenting on the specifics of that case, but to perhaps make a few general points, right? And the first is this: as academics, the impact of AI on teaching and learning is something that we are all still grappling with. It's something that it's still relatively new to us, right? And so just like any other persons as academics, we have to make certain judgment calls at work. And I would say, without going to the specifics of that case, I would say sometimes we do get those calls wrong. And I think the second point is that more importantly, right, where perhaps outcome isn't right. And I'm glad that NTU in this time round, they realized the potential shortcomings of the system. They convened an expert panel to review the initial decisions. So I do applaud them for recognizing and having the humility to relook their earlier decisions.
Right.
I think the final point is this, right? And I think the students deserve credit. They showed some courage to stand their ground against frankly, a juggernaut of a public university, right, where the power disparity is huge, and yet they believe so firmly in their case that they went public, and for at least one of them, that led to a better outcome for her, right? So I think there are a few reflection points from this incident.
I mean, AI is such a nuanced thing. We're all still learning about it, right? What are your thoughts, Andrew? What were your thoughts on this issue?
So I have the opposite view. In this case, because it's been made clear throughout the course that no use of AI is allowed, especially in this case involved. And when we look at the integrity of the courses, as we put up, the rubrics are very clear. So as a lecturer, we are not allowed to mark outside of the rubrics which have been cleared by the board of panel as well. So in this case, yes, 3 out of maybe a cohort of 100, 200 is abnormally, but if the rest of that 97% can adhere to that law, why so that these 3 are unable to do so?
Right.
And is it fair and equitable to mark down the 97 who has been doing their submission according to what the lecturer has instructed them?
Fair enough, fair enough. I mean, what's worth noting is that all 3 students told the Straits Times that they were accused of academic fraud over citation-related issues, despite submitting evidence of their writing process or intent. Now, prior to the creation of ChatGPT or other generative AI here, many of us, and I guilty as charged, I've used citation generators online. I mean, citations, when it comes to citations, it's such a hassle. There's so many things to it. So, I mean, Andrew, what's the difference here, though? Should simply using generative AI to help with citations be treated as an academic fraud under a zero-tolerance policy?
Well, I guess it varies from lecturer to lecturer because, like what Damien mentioned earlier as well, depends on the intent of the course as well. So it's as clear as if I want to test the person's ability to achieve a certain outcome, and the outcome is achieved based on without using those particular tools. Do we still allow them to pass if they use other tools? So, for example, driving test, we are supposed to learn parking. Can we say we let the trainee use the parking assist and let the person pass the driving test? Because they have the technology.
Right.
But driving test is as well, we are known. You have to park on your own without knocking onto the post and things like that. So the verdict is out there. Rules are rules, especially in the institution of higher learnings.
That's a great analogy there. I didn't think of that. But, well, Damien, don't you think that if we don't enforce clear and strict boundaries here, like a zero-tolerance policy, how do we protect academic standards when even citation tools can blur the lines?
Right, so I think we can have clear and balanced, clear and strict standards, clear and strict boundaries without having to implement a blanket ban on AI, right? That means 2 things. You can have a policy, you can have a very clear policy, a very balanced, very detailed policy, but it can be a policy that captures the nuances, a policy that is measured, right? So in my view, rather than going for a blanket ban on AI, what we should aim for is one which is measured, which is tailored towards the circumstances. As Andrew said, it really depends on what this assessment is about, right? And I do believe we should not fear AI. We should not just go in with the starting point that no AI at all and just leave it to that.
Right. Well, in an update of this case, one of the students has been cleared of AI misconduct after a panel of AI experts was convened. Now, the panel reportedly conducted a paragraph-by-paragraph analysis of her essay and gave the opportunity to, explain her research and citation process in detail. They also examined the citation tool she had used, which she found via a Google search. So, Andrew, if it took a panel of AI experts, paragraph-by-paragraph analysis in digital forensics to determine that a student didn't use generative AI, how can a zero-tolerance policy be fairly enforced without risking wrongful punishment for innocent students?
So I would say in this case, it's a absolute no issues with it because the person did get redressed and
Yeah.
there is a process in place for them to appeal as well. So if you look at the bigger scheme of things, NTU have tens of thousands of students,
Right.
and we only have 3 cases that we are talking about. And in this case, it's clear that they flawed the rules to a certain extent. They use it for their citation when it was made very clear zero usage. Having said that, it's not like every other courses that we have in NTU do not use AI at all. So I have the honor of creating a master's program and undergraduate programs in entrepreneurship and technology, and we do encourage the use of AI. But to use it in the rubrics, I guess it takes time for more track records and cases to actually establish, knowing that AI is still a very new tool starting only 2 years ago.
Right. Well, at the same time, I can switch this around and ask if it takes a specialized panel and in-depth investigation just to clear a student from AI misconduct, doesn't that highlight how complicated and risky it is to allow any AI use at all? I mean, which could potentially open the door to widespread confusion or even unfair accusations, Damien?
Yeah. Well, Hongbin, at the risk of sounding like a lawyer, right? That is what we call a post hoc fallacy.
Okay.
It's not the fact that there was a policy whereby you allow AI liberally that led to what you call the widespread confusion and unfair accusations. In fact, it was quite the opposite, right? It was a complete ban on AI that led to this confusion, that led to the need for an expert panel to really decide what is or is not use of AI. And that goes back to my earlier point, right? Is that if you just have a blanket policy, the issue with that is, how far does the blanket extend? Does it extend to even a Google search, right? Because we all know that Google, they also incorporate AI
Right.
in ranking their searches. So, I really have to go back to the point that it's a policy whereby you should have a policy, but you have to have a policy that measures the nuances, that takes into account the context.
Right. I mean, when even Google is using AI, sometimes it's very hard to distinguish, is this AI? Am I using AI? I mean, due to the rise and rapid development of generative AI here, more academic institutions are using AI detectors, which assess what percentage of the text is AI generated versus human generated. But it looks like multiple studies have shown that AI detectors were neither accurate nor reliable, producing a high number of both false positives and false negatives. So in this case, Andrew, is it then ethical to apply a zero tolerance policy when the primary enforcement tools can't really reliably distinguish human work from AI generated text?
It's just opening another can of worms, where you have your hallucination that actually varies very bigly as well. So this is the part where why do we fear AI? No, we will embrace AI. But having a zero tolerance actually help the students to be more resilient, how they can differentiate themselves to work in the workforce to be future ready, so that AI will not take away their role and their jobs. So I think it's helping them to say, can you survive without AI? Again, I want to use the analogy of driving. We do have a manual car and automatic cars, but we only allow automatic cars as a form of license many years after it's actually being stabilized. So a lot of times the institution may not be the leading adopter of technology. They will want to take a step back to let more use cases to come in before they make their decision.
Well, even still, having a zero tolerance policy and letting students know an AI detector will be used to assess their work may deter them from using AI in the first place, or even diligently looking through and making sure that they haven't used AI. I mean, Damien, because without strict limits or a zero tolerance stance, what's to stop students from outsourcing their entire academic work to AI? Isn't it unfair to students who didn't use AI at all?
Yeah. Hongbin, I'm glad you brought up the point of the unreliability of AI detectors, right? So at my university, there's a clear policy directive that instructors, we are not supposed to accuse students of cheating, of misconduct, just because an AI detector, which has, as you have said, studies have shown to be unreliable, flags out the potential use of AI, right? We require something more to really establish misconduct, right? So and that deals with the part about trust and all these detectors. But perhaps to your more fundamental question, right? What's stopping students from outsourcing their academic work to AI completely? I think here we have to give our students a bit more credit. For most of my students, they come to university motivated, right? They do not just want to pass, they want an A, right? They do not just want a degree, they want a degree with honors. And it might be because currently in the job market out there is quite difficult. They want to distinguish themselves for the rest against the rest of the field. And I think, the students themselves, right? Their motivation shouldn't be discounted. And also on the other side, professors, right? Most of us are pretty discerning. We can tell relatively which one is better, which one is good, right? And end of the day, most of our public universities in Singapore, we grade on a comparative basis. So what I would say is that AI, they can help elevate the baseline, right? As a baseline is elevated, but AI is not going to get anyone a first-class honors if he or she did not put in the work.
Ooh,
At least
okay.
that's my opinion. Right?
All right. Well, I mean, a recent study by Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, the scientists there found that AI chatbots were making humans use their brains less. While the use of chatbots enabled 60% faster completion of tasks, it also reduced germane cognitive load by 32%. Now, the study revealed that more than 80% of ChatGPT users couldn't quote from essays they wrote minutes earlier. So, Damien, isn't allowing AI in any form simply opening the door to a gradual erosion of academic integrity and original thought?
Okay. So, when the calculator was first invented, right? I'm sure some purists in the mathematics department thought that was the beginning of the end, right? No one knows how to do sums anymore. But did we ban calculators? No, we didn't, right? We instead we taught our students how to use calculators, how to use it as a tool to enable them to solve more complex problems, right? So to me, it's the same idea, right? It's one whereby it's a technology that's here to help, right? We can be scared of it, we can fear it, but end of the day, it's something that we have to live with. It's something that we should approach constructively and use it for betterment instead of just taking a pessimistic view of the whole thing and try to hide behind the old ways of doing things.
Definitely. The calculator there was a great analogy. Once again, I mean, we're having great analogies from both Damien and Andrew here. Well, on that note, Andrew, I mean, just given the case of the calculator here, couldn't a zero tolerance create a stigma around AI, discouraging students from integrating these technologies into their learning and research, thus inadvertently stifling innovation and critical thinking, which are essential skills in modern education?
Not necessary, because I think what we are doing on the citation part is just a one segment of the course. And you notice that in all the rubrics and the assessment, we do a lot of class participation, we do a peer evaluation, and so on and so forth. So submitting results, submitting project works, submitting reports are just one element of it. So it won't be like everything is hinged on the one basket. And like what Damien mentioned, to get the first class honors, you need to be all-rounder.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond just putting up a good citation over there. How you perform in the class, how you interact in the project work, so on and so forth. We can tell the difference. And I think AI is just but one tool at the moment for them to use.
Right. I mean, we're having great perspectives from both sides here. To wrap up our conversation here, I just want to ask you both, in a world where AI is becoming indistinguishable from human work, how can academic institutions plan to draw the line between assistance and cheating, and who gets to decide? Damien?
Yeah. In my opinion, the decision on where the line should fall should be one that is decided by the individual instructor. And I suspect this is where Andrew and I will actually concur, which is that we've all talked about it being needing to be context specific, right? When in primary school, right, when children are learning basic arithmetic, in a mathematics exam, clearly they're not allowed a calculator, right? In pharmacology, right, when the students are supposed to remember drug names and the functions of drugs, we do not allow them to bring textbooks into those exams because they are tested on recall. So I do believe it's one where there shouldn't be one strict guideline that says no AI at all. Instead, it should be one whereby it's left to the instructors depending on the task, depending on the purpose of the assessment. And I feel that the instructor themselves are the best people to decide.
Okay. And Andrew?
Definitely, instructors are the one to decide. And that's why I say, if I bring back to this case, the instructor has been very clear. It's just that the students do not respect the rules. But if I may, the usage of AI will have other issues of intellectual property rights, copyrights issues, and authenticity and all those things as well. So how are we going to revel and incorporate into the system? It still takes a lot more than what can we do with a blanket rules. So a lot of more decision, a lot more research, and use case studies will have to take place before the university would take a stand.
All right. Well, some great insights from both of you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've been speaking to Andrew Tan Yong Chuan, who is the co-founder of Atomi, and Damien Xing, who's a senior lecturer in law at the National University of Singapore Business School. Thank you to all those who tuned in on our social media platforms and on air as well. Tune in again next week for another Hot Seat. I've been your host, Hongbin Jeong.
This is Money FM 89.3, Singapore's first and only business and personal finance station.